Hey everybody, welcome and thank you for joining Watching Code Office Hours. This is session number 67. The purpose of these sessions is really simple. It's just to help you with any problems that you're having while you're going through Watching Code material. So if there's an issue with something like practical JavaScript or with the premium content, then you can just ask me directly. So it's the best, most direct way to get help. And the purpose is just so that you never get stuck as you're going through Watching Code material. So before we start, just a couple logistics. First of all, make sure you join the Facebook group so get info about updates and attend upcoming sessions. So sometimes there might be a schedule change or announcements that are kind of posted at the last minute. So Facebook is where those announcements usually go. So check that out. Also, information about all these sessions are on Facebook too. If you want to ask a question, you'll want to call in. Sometimes if you ask a question in the Facebook group or on the YouTube live stream, I might miss it. So if you want to ask a question and make sure you get answered, then you want to join the Hangout. So if you're on the YouTube live stream and you're watching there, in the video description, there's a link to this document where you'll find the call-in link right here. So that's it for me. From here, we'll just go into open questions and just discussion around the material based on whatever the students want to talk about. So that's it for me. Stop broadcasting that. And I guess let's start with Steven.
Hey, I'm here.
Hey. Yeah, so I know we chatted a little bit before, and you said your goal is just to show up. So
Tonight, yes.
So I guess
that doesn't mean I couldn't come up with any questions. For
sure, no, it's cool. You don't have to have a specific question. I guess even though a lot of students might not have a question, there may be parts of the material that they're more comfortable with than other parts. So I'd be curious just to know how, what falls into those different parts for you, like the things you think feel really good and then maybe things that feel not so good. And maybe we could talk about those parts, particularly the areas where you feel like maybe you need a little bit more reinforcement. Even if there's nothing like you don't really not understand, but just like that comfort level.
Yes. Well, in no particular order, a lot of what I feel good about involves being able to look at lines of code and not be as confused as I was before. For example, say document.write and then the parentheses. Now I can look at any sort of setup like that, like the object and then the method on it, and not be as confused. I may not know what the method does, or what the element does, or what's going on in terms of what's being passed into it and things. But I'm starting to pick up on the I guess you would call it syntax a lot better from this course, and being able to sort of comprehend what variables do. For the longest time, I bounced around in a bunch of different tutorial classes, and I was always a little confused by that. But now actually I left a comment with somebody. They were confused over the triple equals and the single equal sign, and you had mentioned it. You explained the difference, but it wasn't until I went back and understood that the triple equals is how we typically think of an equal sign, and otherwise you're just setting a value or giving a value. Little things like that, just building block things are much easier for me to understand. Functions, objects, understand them a lot better, but also know enough to know now that there's a lot more to learn. Yeah, and as far as trouble areas, or parts that sort of confuse me, I'll just give a quick example. I wrote down a list of, sorry, my head's turned, I'm looking at my other screen. I wrote down a list of the unfamiliar concepts, and everything you wrote down was obviously unfamiliar to me, but I added some other ones. I kept noticing like E was appearing in
Yep.
parentheses.
So just to clarify for others that are listening, I think you're talking about one of the, one video in the jQuery to do MVC series.
Yes,
Right?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, part one. Sorry.
Okay.
We're actually going through and trying to read the source code, which I've never done. Well, I've looked at source code, but I never try to go through it like you're teaching us to. But I added some other unfamiliar concepts to it, and it was actually I don't know, enlightening, sort of fun to go in and research one thing at a time. And even though I don't totally understand it, I do feel like it's becoming less, like Greek to me or whatever you want to say. But anyway, as far as trouble areas, there are things that are confusing to me. Like, let me pull up an example really quick. And so we're still talking about part one. Sorry. I had something that came up right before we came on air. Let me look at my notes. Oh, there we go. There's two that come to mind. Say like routing and local storage. I think I get it. It seems like routing has something to do with the URL and the pound sign, and local storage versus session storage. So in other words, I'm still clueless, but I feel a little bit more comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
That's about it. But yeah, overall things are starting to sort of come together. I'm actually trying to learn Spanish. I took a couple of years in undergrad many years ago, and I'm using that Duolingo deal. So it's kind of like that, where I can't really speak Spanish, but I can tell that I'm picking up on more when I listen to people speak it. I can decipher more. I'm not as confused the whole time.
Right.
This is the best way to put it.
That makes sense. One thing that can be really helpful is in the jQuery source code for TDMVC, there's a lot of many different uses of this keyword.
Okay.
And so it's pretty helpful to go back to this series in Practical JavaScript and refer to that. That didn't exist in Practical JavaScript and I added it quite recently, maybe 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. The reason was because I realized that people were getting to premium and they were getting to what you're doing right now, and they needed a little bit more preparation for understanding this. So
Okay.
that can be that'll be helpful, just because it is kind of convoluted. It can be, but all of the situations of this that you'll see in that jQuery to do MVC are in the cheat sheet. So that's probably what I see people get tripped up on the most. And then the other thing, just to keep in mind as you continue, because it sounds like you're making really, really good progress, is just to really not worry too much about the things you don't know. And like if you're reading one piece of code, then just really try to focus on what's happening there. And even if there's, like, say there's a jQuery method you're not sure about, then maybe you might want to look at the documentation for that jQuery method.
Okay.
And that's good. But where you want to stop is where a lot of students are like, oh man, I need to go take a jQuery course now. Right? And I need to know everything about jQuery, and that's a mistake. And I think I should probably stress this a little bit more, because that problem or challenge comes up over and over again. Like in your programming, you're always gonna see something that you don't quite know, and there's this urge to be like, oh, I want to understand everything about it, which is fine if you have a lot of free time, but it should not be the default plan of action, because then you'll get, then your default will be never getting anything
Okay,
done.
gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, but it seems like you're in a good.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm progressing, which is awesome.
Well, what's been the hardest thing for you with your programming? Because I ask this because I'm curious. I guess I think my hunch is that it's not about programming at all. Because you said you wanted to come and you wanted to show up today.
Oh,
Was it like just fitting it into your schedule, or?
yeah. I actually heard one of your podcasts the other day where you were saying that it seems like a lot of times, I forget the word you used, but essentially it's psychological, the on in your head, and I tend to want to just get things done. Like, come on, let's keep going, go, move. So I definitely struggle with that, and if I don't get it the first time around, I'm like, dadgum, that's dadgum. That's a Southern thing. I live in Tennessee. Anyway, so you get frustrated. I'll get frustrated, and I just want results right away. And an issue. The other thing that I think is really interesting is I've kind of played with guitar for many years, and I was always told if you want to play fast, you have to learn to play slowly first, and the speed just comes with it, Mm-hmm. And as soon as you mentioned something about that, I believe it was in the podcast, then it really sunk in. I thought, we'll do the same thing. Like if I'm practicing a scale, you start slowly, and then just eventually you can play some good music. So
right. Very slowly though.
Yeah, very slowly. Yeah. One thing at a time.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. A lot of the thinking around teaching is a little bit inspired by music. So that's why they're like the interludes. And though I'm not a musician, but a lot of people in my family are. And so I'd see them struggle through stuff, and I'd notice it's the same thing. They're very, very similar. And so, yeah, I definitely borrowed a lot of ideas from that.
It really does apply to programming.
Mm-hmm.
Just one of the things I did for many years was create computer-based training modules, but I used Adobe Captivate. So it was, the boring slides you have to do, like click next, multiple choice, that kind of thing. And I was always frustrated that I wasn't able to get in and modify it because I didn't know how to program at all. So I look back to those days and compare what I knew then to what I know now, which I still know very little. I've made enough progress to help me get over the moments where I feel frustrated, or like, am I really smart enough to do this? Because I'm not learning it the first time around. So yeah, it's definitely getting better.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. It's great to hear that, and I hope you keep at it. Hope to see you.
Yeah.
See you next week too.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Is there anything else, Stephen, or I guess, because if you do have a question that pops in your mind, just shout and I'll get to you.
Okay,
so
will do. Thank you.
Because sometimes things can pop into your head.
All right, good deal. Thank you.
All right, so I think David was next. David?
Me, David?
Yes. There's only one David in here, I think.
Oh, okay. I'll ask you this because it relates to the Beast Challenge that Sherry's working on, and the challenge. I noticed that several people used a caching method,
mm-hmm.
and well, not a method, but a property in the object. And so, I'm just curious as to like what's the mindset for doing that. So, and the requirement is that the callback should only run once, and so it's not something that you introduced and then the content. So, if you could just kind of like explain like
Yeah, like how do you come up with the idea of caching without being explained or taught that concept?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I think this happens quite a lot where I won't teach a particular concept the way it's normally taught. Like I think if you caching might be a concept that you learn about, and the way you're introduced to it is like, why do you do it? What are the how does it work? What are the technical details? And I think it's a lot more interesting when you have a problem that where the natural solution is to cache. And so if you solve the problem, then you'll learn about caching. If that makes sense.
So,
So
I mean, I know that there are instances where we set a value or property to be true.
mhm.
So in a sense, I guess that would be something that would be similar to that.
Well, I mean, the general idea with, because you're talking about libraries,
Mhm.
out of order, right?
Yeah.
So you want to think about um, that problem in two stages. One is when you create a library, you basically save it so it can be used later. And two is when you want to use a library, you need to get a library from somewhere that's
Right.
stored in memory. Now, the thing is, if you have, like, perhaps in your code, let's say that multiple people try to create the same library, then what you could do is you could do that same work. Let's say it takes 10 units of work
Hmm.
to do it the first time, 10 units to do it the second time, 10 units to do it the third time. But what you could just do is you could just do it once. And so the first time you do 10 units of work, and then you just save it. You save the result. And then the second time you just check if it's there. If it's there, you just don't do anything. You don't do any more work. So I guess the overarching guideline is to when you have a case when you might do something many times and the result is always the same,
Hmm.
then you can probably just save that result so you don't have to calculate it every single time.
Okay.
So that's the general idea. More technically, if you have a function that always returns the same thing every single time, then with given inputs, it always returns the same thing, and you call that function repeatedly, or you might call that function repeatedly with the same inputs. You might as well just save the output so you don't have to calculate it every single time.
I see. So in that case, it becomes like a performance issue also.
It's not even just a performance issue. I think it's logically more consistent too,
Okay.
right? Like if you already did something, why would you do it again? I think that when you save the result and you just return the result that was calculated in a previous function call, it communicates that it's always the same.
Right.
So there's a communication value as well as a performance value.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense, but I guess if you don't know what the cost is for running that function each time, it's not something that I think you would naturally have an alternate method of returning that result, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends. Like I that problem is not super fresh in my head. So I don't know if you can even do it without caching results.
You would,
Because you if you register a library, you need to save it somewhere so it can be used when someone reads it. So it has to be saved, right?
it does. So it's
If the result is not saved, then you have to save the inputs and then rerun your logic over the inputs. So you have to cache something, but you may just be caching a little bit too early rather than caching ultimate result.
So in the one prior, the one with just dependencies, we didn't use, or the caching wasn't used. It was just stored to into the object, the library storage.
I don't really remember, but I mean, I think it's very similar.
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to look at it. I can't off the top of my head. I can't remember the distinction between the two.
I think with that one, it was just getting it because we were given the library. We didn't have to save it or go back to it. We were just working with it existing. So I don't think it didn't come into play because we had access to it immediately.
Well, when you put it in order, you would load the dependencies first, and then the library with dependencies would be the last call.
Well, so I guess the question is, like, for example, in loading libraries with dependencies, the first one, if you loaded a library, you created it, and then you created the same library, yeah, I can't really remember at this point. I'll have to look at it in more detail.
Yeah,
but I hope I answered like the general idea. Like, why would you want to save the result of a repeated function call? It's so that you don't have to repeatedly calculate the same result over and over again when you could just save it once.
That part makes sense.
Yeah, but the specific details I don't recall. If you pull them up, we can look at them. You wanna do that?
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, 1 second.
Okay.
Oh wait, you there? You still there? Okay. What is that? I don't know if I have it on this computer.
Okay. I can come back to you, David. We can also look at it after the broadcast too, because this is a pretty detailed question.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't apply to a lot of people. But we can definitely get your question answered.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah. So I guess what would make it really easy for me to answer is if you have just that, an example that you're interested in, or a solution for the first one, which is library system with dependencies, and then another solution with this for the loading libraries out of order, and then then we can be more concrete.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. So next, I think was Sam. Sam, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good. How's this stuff been going? And any questions come up?
Right now, no questions. I know you have some things to go over with me in regards to the test that you had me create this past week. But overall, I feel pretty good with my learning process. I feel more and more confident every time.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's still a long process, but I'm at least feeling a lot better about the testing process and just the way I should think about things. I'm feeling a lot better, and yeah, that right now is it makes you feel better, makes you feel like you want to keep going. So, so overall, it's good. No real questions right now. I'm on the last test, reduced. I'm on that part. So I don't have any questions because I haven't started yet. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, cool. Where do you feel like you've made the most progress? Like you said that you feel, you're feeling more confident,
Yes.
feeling better. Like, are there specific parts that are contributing to that?
Yeah, I would say me thinking programmatically. I feel like initially I couldn't think of a solution to a problem. Like if you were to just give me a certain problem, it would be tough for me to come up with the solution, even if it was wrong. I just felt like I didn't trust myself enough to even figure out the solution. Like I just didn't know like where to start. I just would kind of be frozen. But now seeing other solutions and seeing how other people come up with solutions and just digging around, it makes it easier now. Where you go off kind of experience, and I think that's the biggest thing is just getting that experience. Just looking at JavaScript programming every day, going through the videos every day, really just reinforce that. And I still have a long way to go, but just knowing that it has helped me increase my ability to think a little bit more programmatically. Just in itself, just doing it every day, I think is really what allowed me to make great improvements.
Right. That makes sense. Are there things that you feel like have been annoying about the learning process so far that have been like frustrating besides everything?
the known unknowns. That's what I call them. So like you know what you don't know, and you're like, I need to know, I need to learn this, but you still haven't understood the basics yet. And so my biggest thing is I try and move so fast through things. And you wanna learn everything in quickest amount of time. But when it comes to programming, it really takes time. You kind of I think you said a lot. You have to be methodical, in a sense, to really get that true understanding. And so it's frustrating that I just can't just learn it. I just don't know it. But knowing that me being methodical is actually improving my abilities better than any other thing I've tried is a testament in itself. And so I say that was the frustrating thing, but I am now seeing the results of it.
Yeah, it's like something I always tell myself is that at least in programming, this is definitely true, that slow is fast. Like when you do things slowly, like when you move slowly, and even if you type slowly and you think through scenarios slowly and you're more considered, you overall end up faster for any given task. And so at the extreme, it's someone that just like, for example, imagine someone that always types perfectly, never makes a typo, and they're super considered. That's an extreme, and that's bad. I don't think you should be like that, right? that, you know, there are diminishing returns to being careful. And I think that person is probably taking it too seriously. But then think of the person at the other extreme, the scatterbrained, like, oh my God, like, you know, we all know people like that in our lives. And you look at them at any given moment, it looks like they're moving really fast. But if you if you see what they've done on a weekly basis or monthly basis, they actually tend to be really slow.
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
you know, those are two extreme examples, but it's better to be on the careful side, I think, because I think those people that model tends to, at least in programming, be much faster than, like, for example, if you're grocery shopping or something, you can just run through the aisles and get your stuff, and you probably won't matter. You can be frantic and it's okay. But with programming, it's hard because your franticness creates bugs.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's like you're trying to clean your house with like a dirty cloth, you know, and you're just like, you're making it worse, but
Exactly.
you don't realize it.
Mhm.
So you just have to be like, oh shit, I have to wash this cloth first, and then I can clean things.
Definitely.
Okay, cool. Well, after the broadcast, I'll take a look at the stuff that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yep. Sounds good.
Cool. Yeah, and good job showing up again. You've been very consistent, Sam. It's
Thank
great.
you.
But Sam, did you finish the filter method?
Every I finished. I still
Oh, wait, was it every?
yeah, it was the every. I did finish it. I wasn't able to make the updates that you suggested. So I wanted to kind of I wanted to go over it in more detail. I didn't know for sure if we were gonna do it during or afterwards. So
yeah, we'll take a look at it for sure.
okay.
Okay, so next I think it's either Sherry or Adnan. Whoever speaks first.
Wow, and I was slow too.
Adnan, you're next.
Well, you might want to wait until after as well, because as David brought up, the out of order library thing, I need to go over with you guys.
Okay. So you know what, you just wait, since Dave and I are going to talk about that anyway.
Yeah, that would be great. And you know, just one other thing, kind of along the lines of what some were saying. You know, I went back and redid all of the library parts. The testing parts, the TDD series, and it was actually interesting doing it a second time and rewriting it on my own. You know, before watching you do it on the video. And one thing that I realize is I actually find it harder. Well, let me say, I find it easier if I'm sitting and working on something and just writing a function, you know, the way I would use it, is to me easier than sitting and writing the testing function and then applying whatever I'm working with, if that makes sense.
Can you elaborate?
Right. So let's say in the testing series, you know, for each question, we're writing out what we're testing to make sure that the function we wrote works.
Okay.
I guess no different than even in that library challenge. You know, you gave us the libraries and we had to write the function so that the library works. I actually find it easier when I'm writing something out, not even specific to this series, but just if I'm working on, let's say I'm coding out a program and I know what type of function I need to use and I know the variables I'm putting in or whatever, you know, I'm writing the function for. It's easier, I find, for me to just write a function as I'm working on something. And I find it more difficult writing like in the testing series where we're writing out what we want to pass and then coming up with the function to make it pass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually find the way of doing that to be a lot harder than I ever expected.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I think there's some cases where what you're saying, like basically not writing the test first, right?
Or not writing a test at all.
Or just skipping that section. Yeah. I think there's certain cases where not writing a test at all can be easier. I'm not gonna lie and say like, you should always do it this way. And it tends to be the case when you have stuff that is either simple, like you already know what the answer is, and so you're like anxious to get it down, and you're like, why is there this extra step? It's like this is fat. Right? This step is
But
like fat.
yeah, but this
Um,
definitely makes you think more, and it's certainly it gives a whole different element. I think that I just really wasn't used to or haven't
mhm,
been as used to. So it's great. I mean, I don't mind it. I think that there's a lot to learn from doing that.
mhm,
But I just didn't expect it to be as as tricky as it can be at
I
times.
see. Yeah. Well, I think your point is important because I do think sometimes it is easier to just write the code and not have a test. And that, like I said, it tends to happen when you just already know the answer and it's like a very well-known thing to you. And so you just want to write it down. The second scenario where it's very difficult to test first is if you have no idea what your solution is going to look like. Right. So if you don't know the boundaries of what the code is supposed to do very clearly, it's very difficult. You can't write the tests because the test enforces those boundaries with code. Right. So if you don't know what the design of your program and exactly what it should do, then it's very difficult or impossible to write tests. And so I think in the testing series, I kind of mentioned this as like almost like prototyping. So sometimes I might write a bunch of code, just garbage, throwaway code to just see if my ideas are possible and if they make sense. And then once I get a feel for, I might do 2 or 3 really quick implementations and not test them at all. And then once I feel like I like one approach, I'll formalize the boundaries of what that code should do and then write the tests. Does that make sense? So basically, once I've figured out how I want the code to look, what I want it to do, then I'll write the test. Otherwise, if you write the test before that and your code is subject to change, then you're going to be redoing a lot of stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that comes up a lot too. In the testing series, our code is just like very well understood. We knew exactly what we wanted to do, so that wasn't as much of an issue.
It's just, you know what, I feel like it just opens up a whole different thought process from what
Mhm.
I've experienced when just coding something out.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I think for me, what I've noticed the most from students is they finally understand what their code does. Whereas most of the time they'll write code and not really know what it does, which sounds ridiculous, but it's so common. I see it all the time, where it it doesn't actually do what they think it does, at least not in most of the cases, or um, there's a detailed portion where they think one thing is happening, but it's actually not. And that's where when you write the test, it forces you to inspect yourself at a more granular level and understand how the whole system works a little bit more. Okay, and then Shay, we'll talk about the library systems out of order later on.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, no problem. All right, so now is Adnan. Are you there? Adnan? Oh, mic's not working. All right. Um, well, if you type your question out, I can get to it. Um, or if you get your mic working. Okay, I'll come back to you. So I think after that was Idafi. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly. And then I think Russ is the last one. Idafi, are you there? Hello? I can't hear you. All right, Idafi, I'm gonna skip over you. See if you can get your mic working, and in the meantime, move on to Russ. All right, Russ, are you there? You're muted. You're muted, so you want to unmute. Yes.
Okay, Gordon, that's it. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Gordon. Today is my first day calling in, and I just want to say thank you for this course. It's been a tremendous help, and yeah, I'm stoked about being in this place with practical JavaScript and going on to premium, which hopefully in the next maybe week or so I'll be there.
Nice.
Today I called specifically about practical JavaScript number 9, and I was doing, and it was in reference to views. I believe you added this should show up into the add on the add button, and when I did that, what did show up was in the console, under my to-dos, the phrase that I added to the add button, this should show up, that came up. So I see that in the console. However, when I type in view display to-dos and hit enter, instead of the bullet point and this should show up coming up, instead, I get a, let's see, it says cannot read properly, quote unquote, quote, to do text of undefined at objects.display to dos. Now, I went back and I tripled and quadruple checked it. In fact, I wanted to call it next week, but I said, I don't want to be the guy who missed, a comma and calling in and could have solved it myself. So. That's where I'm at. I'm stuck on the code. It looks identical, but I'm getting an undefined at object display to do.
Okay. 1 second. There's like a lot of background noise, so I think it might be
maybe my AC. Let me.
No. It's not you. It was I think it was Adnan. But that's good. Your mic's working now, Adnan. So Russ, first thing is, can you share your screen and show me the code so I can see what's going on?
Okay.
Where are you calling from, Russ?
I'm calling from Los Angeles, West Hollywood.
Oh, nice. Cool. Wait, is that what's the NFL team? Wait,
that's the no. Originally, you're calling me out here. Originally, I'm from New York.
Oh, okay. Is that Giants?
It's the Giants. That's right. That's right.
As like Chargers? I don't think Chargers looks like that.
Packers all day.
Well, no. Sam's was a college football player.
Okay, let's see. Gordon, I'm having how do I share? I just brought up my Plunker. Yeah. How do I share it with you, though?
So, let me show you. All right, so you're gonna see some craziness. So
So I have my.
do you see my screen?
Uh,
So
I'm
you should.
Yeah.
So yeah, so click my screen. You'll see Steven's dog and I think his kid.
Okay.
On the left, top left, there's this green screen
Okay.
share button, and you want to click
Okay.
that. And when
Okay.
you click that, it will share your screen.
And your entire screen. Okay. Share. Okay.
Nice. All right. So,
Okay. Can you see it?
Yep.
Oh, great. So right there, the VAR view.
Okay.
So under the to-do list on the right, I added this should show up, and when I do, I go into the. I did that. I went into the console, and in the console.
Wait. Sorry, 1 second. I think what might be easier is can you copy and paste the Plunker URL into the chat?
Okay.
And so then I'll open it up, and
Okay.
and then I'll share my screen, and then you walk me through like how to trigger the error.
Okay. Oh,
You can refresh.
okay. Seems like you are one step ahead of me. Let me see. Let me refresh this here. Okay. Okay, great. That worked. Copy.
Yeah, and just paste it into the chat, the Google Hangouts chat.
Watch.
Yeah, that one.
Well, I have your screen up, and below is the. Let me come back here.
Yeah, so click the chat.
It says go.
Click the chat. There's a chat button on the top left. The blue thing.
Gordon, I don't. Oh, the blue says stop.
With 6. No, it says cover on the left side. Go on the left side of your screen.
Let me bring my screen down. Okay.
Go on the left side of the window.
Now I can see it.
Yeah, and hit chat. And type in or paste in that URL.
Okay. And do you see it?
Yeah, I see it. So what I'll do is I'll open up and share my screen and then see if I can fix it.
Okay.
1 second. All right. So the rest you can stop sharing. I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay. Gordon, you must be on the West Coast as well, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So tell me how to make the error come up.
Okay. So I went to. All right. So I went to. Let's see. Under add in the to-do list.
Okay.
Okay. Under add in to-do list, I typed in this should show up.
Wait, so how did you add a to-do list item? Or how did you add an item?
Let's see. I added an item from so I guess what you're seeing now is not, I don't see an add button there.
Yeah.
And hello.
So I guess on yours you have to hit save if you have it.
Okay. I'm gonna go back and do that, okay?
Okay, save it, make sure it's there, and then send me that saved link.
Okay, I'm doing it right now. Okay. And it says that I'm going to do it, save it anyway. It says the plunker was frozen, but now it should be okay now. Let's see here. Go back here. Okay. There we go, Gordon.
Okay. So, oh yeah, I'll share my screen again.
Okay.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Oh, I can see you saying great. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so how do I get the error to show up? What do I
Let's
do?
see. If we go into, I guess you need to go into script.js. Or maybe it doesn't matter. So if you go to add, the add button, and let's type in this should show up.
So the first thing is you have a unexpected token. I think it's right here. Unexpected end tag body, missing end tag div.
Now you're in the,
Yeah, so I'm in your HTML. So I'm going to clean up your HTML. So you want to be very careful with your formatting because it's very hard for me to notice any problems when
okay.
the formatting is inconsistent. So you have the head right here. And then here you have an opening div. And there's a syntax error right here. You need a closing div.
Oh, got it.
You have inconsistent formatting again. Okay. So this should have been all indented one extra level.
Okay.
Okay, so now you have that syntax error is gone.
Okay.
So number one, you should fix that. You can ignore this other stuff. Okay, so what do I do?
Type in the add button, this should show up.
Right.
Okay.
Hit add.
Yeah. Okay. We go to the console.
Okay, this should show up. Cool.
Yep, that's perfect. Now from there, we're going to make sure we do plunker preview target. I lost you there.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay.
Hold on. One second. Let me try. Okay, I think this might work a little bit better. We switch to this window. Okay. So I'm gonna run, and then it should show up, right?
Okay. Okay,
And then
great. And then we want to, I guess we clear that and we type in view.display to-dos so that this should show up, pops up in the app with a bullet point.
well, view's not defined.
Okay, my view is not defined. So I looked for that, and
Yeah, so if view's not even defined, then you're gonna get the same thing when you try to call this.
okay.
So again, it's very difficult for me to spot the bug because the styling and the indentation is
He's off. Okay.
pretty off. I'll see if there's anything obvious.
Okay. Gordon, I went into I went into the debugger as you showed us a few lessons back, and in the debugger, nothing came up basically under view, so there was nothing to jump over or nothing to go down step by step.
Yeah, so let's hold on and figure out what's going on. So your to-do list is not even defined. Oh wait, so hold on, we're in Plunker. We're not in Plunker preview target. My bad. Our view is defined. So view display to-dos. Okay, so this is what you got, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Now everything worked perfectly up until I ran I added the this should show up into the I added that into the to-dos list. So it seemed like the code was fine. Everything.
Wait, just one second. I'm trying to.
Okay.
And this is part of. Okay, this is there. Yeah, you got to work on this consistency.
Yeah, that looks a lot better.
I mean, you don't need to be creative. Just copy the same thing I do.
Got it.
It's like this should never happen ever. Never
Okay.
have two semicolons one below the other. So this matches up with this if, and then this one is from for loop. That's okay. And then I don't know this. This is toggle all. This seems a lot longer than my version. And then this 6. Where does 56 match up with?
56.
To-do list.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
see.
So it matches up with to-do list.
To-do list.
Yeah. So yeah, like this is, and Finally, we get down to here.
Mhm.
Is there a reason the formatting's so inconsistent?
No other reason, Gordon, except sometimes I'm just happy sometimes that the code runs and it works fine. That I don't pay as much attention now. I don't pay as much attention as I should, especially now at the speaking community. When it works, I think I'm doing fine.
Right. So here's another syntax error, semicolon. Right, shouldn't have.
Okay.
This reminds me what I was saying to Sam is that slow is fast.
Right. Right. It makes sense.
This is one of those cases where you can have a lot of you tried to rush through it and it worked, and then you kept on going, and then you didn't take the time to like tidy things up, and then like the semicolons right here, which may have been the problem. So okay, so I've gone through a round of formatting. You want me to do? Well, first let's add, I guess, to-do list dot to-dos is nothing right now. So let's say this should show up. And then what do you want me to do?
I would like for you to do view.display. So if we cleared out the console and type in view.displays function.
You mean view.display to-dos?
I'm sorry, view.display to-dos, yes.
Okay. You're wondering why that's the case.
Right, so before I did not even see undefined. There was an error saying object.display to-dos undefined.
Mm-hmm. So
what you've done is obviously an improvement on what I had there. Why? Let's see. So now it looks like it's working.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're that was just being, I think the key is the indentation.
Indentation.
Being careful.
Okay.
I think it was the semicolon. I think someone mentioned that too. Yeah, Steven pointed out that Adnan pointed out something else. But Steven tested it with and without the semicolon and found that this is the problem.
The semicolon was the issue.
Yeah. But okay. Like honestly, when I see code like this, if it were like if someone wanted to submit code like this for a project, I would just respond and say fix the indentation. Like this is I can't read it. And I just assume there are a lot of errors because I can't like no human can really match up like you know how it's really hard to say like, oh, what does this match up with?
Yeah.
Like what you just can't tell when it's like when it's not consistent. So so then you just hope it works, right? And you want the visual cues to help you, not make things more convoluted than they need to be.
Absolutely.
So what I'll do is I'll fork this, and then you'll have fixed code. Another thing is, whenever you go to the URL in my video, you'll get the working code. So if you ever run into an issue like this, you can always just pop open my code and go through character by character. So the first thing you notice is that your indentation's messed up. So you'd go through and fix that, and then you'd notice other little things, and then you would notice this too. That's a methodical process. It's not like I'm gonna look at it and see if I can find it. You need to get it to look very similar, and then you'll be able to find it. If it looks super different and the semicolons don't even match up, it's going to be very difficult, probably impossible to see the difference.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like
it does.
The cleaner your formatting is, the better. It saves you, it will save you time in the long run.
Okay.
Yeah. And here, I'll paste the link in the chat so you have that. And again, you can just pull up the code from the video. Just go to the same URL, the same Puckler link that I am using.
Okay. That's a huge takeaway for me today.
Yeah. And I want other people watching to, especially you're in the beginning stage, to really pay attention to it, because it's easy to ignore this advice.
Right.
Yeah, super easy to ignore. I see this problem a lot.
Okay.
And it's always tends to be beginners, because most people, most people, the habit gets beaten out of you if you do keep on going. So you tend not to see it later, but it's very, very, very common problem.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So don't feel it's normal. It's normal.
I appreciate it. Gordon, just one last question. I went into the debugger to see if it could help me find out what the problem was. And it really, maybe that's a discussion for another day, but with that semicolon being there, would that have screwed up why I could not find information in the debugger when I stopped it under the view function?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you think that it's a for loop, but it's not.
Okay.
Right. So then the debugger would interpret it as something that you probably don't know. Like I don't really know what would happen either. So you because I've never done that. I've never run that code through the debugger. I'm not sure what it would do. So yeah, absolutely. It would basically turn into a program that most people wouldn't know, like, how it works.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the debugger would still work, but we don't really know what it wouldn't work in any way that you would expect it to work.
Got it.
So
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. Cool. Anything else, Stress, for like Adnan and Adafi still are waiting?
No, thank you. I'll see you next Monday, Gordon. That's that like I said, cleaning up my code was a huge takeaway today.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and later on, what professional developers have is they have a tool that just goes over all your code and just spits out errors for you. And so to enforce these things.
Okay.
So you will stop doing this one way or another.
I'll stop doing this.
Okay, cool. All right.
Thanks a lot, Gordon.
Yeah, you're welcome. Adnan.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm gonna share my screen. All right. Hold on. All right. So I kind of shared this on Slack in the morning.
Right.
And this is exactly the same code that I hope you remember this. Do you remember this? Okay, no worries. I'm just gonna remind you. It's the test development series.
Well, you're showing the filter code, and I don't think you're talking about that.
No, I'm talking about this code.
Can you Command+ a few times to make it bigger?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So I created this whole test series, test based on your video, but I changed a few things, and this whole thing, the lines 44 to 49 over here, this is the whole thing that we were discussing, and you said
one thing that relates to the conversation with Russ is that fix the formatting in line 39.
39. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Nope.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. So yeah. What I'm doing here is I'm declaring an array, then I'm running the for each, and then I'm comparing the array I to array element. And what you said was that to be careful and run it through a debugger, that the I is undefined.
Yep. So let me ask you right now, if you go back to the code, where is I defined?
I is supposed to be picking up the, oh yeah, it's not actually defined except for in the for each, it's picking it up somehow, because when I run it through the console, it gives me an answer over here, and that's what's confusing me.
Right. So if you go back,
Sure.
the callback function is supposed to be passed the index as the second element. So you want to use that. You don't want to use 47, line 47i. So you want to do it the same way you're doing in line 52. Right.
Okay.
So, because you remember,
I see.
you don't want to test. First of all, for someone reading this code, they have no idea where I is coming from. And then
Okay.
if it happens to work, then it's puzzling. And then maybe they'll find that it's from line 27. Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Which is probably the case. But that's bad because it's super confusing and the callback already accepts the index anyway. So why would you not just use that?
Okay. So you're saying that this should be it?
Right. And you should use index.
Okay.
But your test is, but then you want to but you don't test index until the next test in line 50,
Yeah.
right? So,
the whole test was different when
right.
you did it. Of course, I know that. This is what you did, though.
So you want to structure it kind of like the way I structured it, such that you don't need to depend on index to test this. So there are many ways you can do this. You can do 1, 2, 3. You can.
This is what you did, though. This is exactly correct.
Yep. So you could do that. You could, if you wanted 1 and 2, you could increment. Like you could do array. I guess you could say line 46, you can have position, and then you can increment the position in the callback.
Like
right?
count plus, like I did over here.
Exactly. Okay. You could do something like that. But then that would just make it clear where the index is coming from, and you're not testing implementation because your I is very brittle because it depends on 27. That I never changes.
I get that.
Right.
I get that. I understand what you're saying now. I was just having a hard time understanding what was going on.
And if you run it through the debugger, go back where you had I, and then
yeah. So let me run this through the debugger right here.
And then go into the callback.
So it reads the array, and then
okay. So then you go into the for each callback. Go in. Okay, so
the index is 0.
Right. So index is 0, but you see I is not a local variable. Is not local to this function.
Right.
So if you expand the closure section in the scope.
Sorry?
In the scope section on the right. Expand the closure.
Oh, this one. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Um.
Losing my mind a bit. Sorry about that.
Oh, not
So,
not the expand. I guess it's global.
yeah, oh, the global.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's global. So I is gonna I is gonna be somewhere. Yeah, see I
Yeah,
0.
there you are.
Yeah. So you're referring to a global variable inside that's declared in for each line 20 or
Uh-huh.
whatever, right? That's what's happening. It's not a local variable in this
It should be a
function.
local variable.
Yeah, you should be testing a local variable.
But oh, okay. Index is being defined as 0 because it's picking it up from the I. Okay,
Well, index is being passed in
because of the I in
because
the
it's being
global.
called because I is being passed in for index.
Exactly. Yeah, I get that. Okay.
Yep.
All right, and one more thing. I was going over some of these examples in the for each the page that the for each function is defined on, and I kind of went through this one and I understand this one a bit, but maybe this one is something I would like if you could go through with me. I mean, if it's possible, or if it's too much, or if it's something advanced, or I should wait for, then I can. It's not. It's not an issue.
Is it background noise from you, Adnan?
There shouldn't be a background noise.
Okay. So what is it? Give it creates a copy of a given object. Using ECMAScript object meta property functions. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with all of these. Yeah, you'll have to go through the same, like you can read this code the same way we read code in like the jQuery MVC series, and I think it'll make sense. Like I don't know what exactly how get own property names works, and I don't, like off the top of my head, I don't know what get own property descriptor is, and I don't know what, I forget how object defined property works. So I'd have to look each of those things up, but I'm
Okay.
confident that if you did that, you would.
No, I kind of did the same thing for this. I was just what I was trying to ask. Maybe I asked it the wrong way. Was should I go into it or should I just go through the course as I should? I mean,
I think you can ignore this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
That's
think
what
you
I
can
was
ignore it.
asking. I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not essential. I mean, if you have free time and you want to look at it, you'll learn some new things. Like I would learn some new things from looking at that, but it's not. You don't need
Yeah,
to.
it looks complicated. So.
It's not necessary for what we're doing.
Okay.
But for sure for your like a fun exercise, sure.
Okay. All right. But yeah, thanks for clearing that thing up. I'm just going through this whole thing, and the tests can be confusing at times. And I guess anything helps understanding these things. So thanks.
Cool. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so you got one more. Is it Adafe? Am I saying your name right?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. I actually started the practical JavaScript yesterday, and I've been so excited. I'm in my first lesson, and so far it's been great. And I almost got frustrated learning programming because I've been trying to learn all this while by myself, but I'm so excited that I found a guide that I could learn gradually. So thank you so much. JavaScript is like made so easy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so far, most of the discussion weren't making sense to me yet, but I hope with time they're going to make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone here started the same place you did.
Okay.
Right, at the beginning, including me. So
okay,
you'll get there too if you just stick with it.
All right, thank you so much.
Wait,
Yeah.
how do you pronounce your name? I feel.
You got it right. You got it
really?
Right. Yeah, it's actually a Nigerian name.
Nigerian name, Adafe. Is it?
Yeah.
Adafe? Okay.
Adafe. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Well, did you have any questions about anything, or you just
And
wanted to?
also, yeah. So far, I'm good. I'm fine. Yeah.
Good. All right. Awesome. Well, yeah. Then stick with it, and then questions probably will come up.
Okay.
So you know where to come to get your questions answered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like stick with it. Be consistent.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is it's frustrating. It's like inherently a frustrating
Yeah.
activity. So like like I was talking to Russ, sometimes you're going to be looking for a semicolon, except you don't even know it's a semicolon, right? And that is
Okay.
kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Right?
I have a question because in Ross' case, Ross said he tried to debug, but the debugger didn't show any error. So how come that the debugger didn't get to show the error?
Because it's not an error. I think the like JavaScript just read the code in a different way. So instead of reading it as a for loop, it just interpreted it differently. So it wasn't off enough to throw an error, but it was off enough to really change the way the program worked, such that it did something totally different, right? So
does it mean that I don't have to trust the debugger all the time?
no, I think it
Okay.
means that you shouldn't have syntax errors.
Okay.
So the debugger doesn't do everything for you. It doesn't fix your typos. But if you give it code that has logical problems, like, and you just want to know what's happening in each step, then the debugger is really helpful. If you have a bunch of typos and you give it to the debugger, it might run, but it's probably not gonna run in the way you expect. But that is how the code is interpreted, even no matter how weird it is, right? The computer is dumb. It just takes your code and runs it. So if you give it really janky, weird code, it's just gonna run your weird code.
Yeah.
It's not gonna ask, did you mean to do this? Or, maybe in the future, but not yet.
All right. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Cool.
Yeah.
And keep up the good work. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So that was good. Lots of new faces today. So thanks for coming, Dafe, Russ, and Steven. I think it was your first time too. Adnan, I think I've seen you a couple times already, right? So yeah, thanks. And then thanks all the old faces for coming, David and Sherry, Sam. It's good to get a good mix of new people and old people here.
I take exception to that.
Wait, what do you mean? I don't get it.
Old faces.
Oh, I mean like people that have been around watching code, original watching code people. I mean, I'll put Sam in that group. Sam is like a little kid.
Sam's an old soul.
Now he's like just graduated from college. So yeah. So, well, that's it. So those are all the questions. So thank you everyone for joining, and hope that was helpful. And if you want to join for a casual, just a casual chat about other stuff. I know David and Sherry wanted to talk about one of the challenges that they had, and then Sam wanted to look at something that we looked at last week. So if you want to join in on that, then stick around. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, so if you want to join for that, then stick around and stay in the hangout. If not, then thanks again, and I'll see you next week.